Dr. Chi, President Wilson, honored guests, visiting family and friends, and especially the 2007 graduating class of Regent College. It's an honor to address you this evening and to offer my students one last academic lecture, a source-critical study of walking trees. C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien were both fond of walking trees. The Ents in The Lord of the Rings were ancient trees of great power that advanced inexorably upon Sauron and won the Battle of Isengard in the middle volume of Tolkien's trilogy. The awakening of the trees led similarly to the victory of old Narnia in the Second Battle of Baruna in Lewis's Prince Caspian. In both stories, the trees, once aroused, were unstoppable. Powerful Ents, such as Treebeard, moved by lifting first one large foot and then the other, walking with long, deliberate strides. The tree people in Narnia, on the other hand, didn't walk on the surface of the earth. They waded in the earth, as we do in water. Now, as a scholar, I love hunting down sources, and I would like to announce to you this evening a scholarly breakthrough. I have found the literary source of the walking trees in both Tolkien and Lewis. These tree people were not taken from Anglo-Saxon folklore, as sometimes thought. I am pleased to report this evening that the source for these creatures is in fact much more ancient. It is to be found about a third of the way through a first-century Greco-Roman letter. About a third of the way through his letter to an infant church in Asia Minor, the Apostle Paul offers what we in the Academy like to call a thesis statement, or controlling idea. He tells the young believers at Colossae that just as they received Christ Jesus as Lord, so also they were to walk in him firmly rooted. They were to walk rooted. They were, well, to be walking trees. The NIV was a little embarrassed, I suppose, by Paul's mixed metaphor and flattens this out as live in him, rooted. But it's all there in the other translations as it is in the Greek. Peripateta, erids omenoi, walk rooted. This is a bit of a mixed metaphor, isn't it? If such a glaring mixed metaphor was found in one of your student papers, surely Maxine Hancock would circle it and deduct a third of a letter grade. How can you walk and at the same time be fixed firmly and rooted in place? Wouldn't you trip, like if someone tied your shoelaces together? Well, yes, of course, unless you are an Ent. Clearly, Paul wanted the Colossians to be like walking trees, not to walk on the surface of the earth, but to wade in the earth, as we do in water. And graduates, this is the image I want to fix firmly in your minds on this, the day of your graduation from Regent College. You are walking trees. Down beneath your graduation gown, down in your shoes, you should wiggle your toes and find today that they are beginning to feel a little like tree roots. Here you thought Regent College was an international graduate school of Christian studies, but it's not really. Regent College is a greenhouse for growing, walking trees. By God's grace, year by year, whole armies of walking trees have left this greenhouse and have been transplanted to every continent around the globe. And as C.S. Lewis said, once the trees are awakened, they are unstoppable. What does it mean, though, to be walking trees? Just as you received Christ Jesus as Lord, the apostle says, continue to walk in him, rooted and built up in him, strengthened in the faith as you were taught, and overflowing with thankfulness. Really, the question for the Colossians was similar to the one you might be asking yourself today, graduates. Where do we go from here? And Paul says, by all means, move on, move out, grow, but stay rooted. Be a kind of walking tree. There are different kinds of change, aren't there? There is change as deviation and change as growth. Paul was concerned that the Colossians find the secret of the kind of change we think of as growth. It looked like it was all too possible for the Colossians to walk away unrooted, uprooted, to drift with the culture into forms of pseudo-spirituality or cultural ideology or self-improvement regimes. And though I don't want to spoil our party this evening, this is a danger for you too, graduates. It's hard to imagine on a joyful day like today that such a danger is real, and yet it is. Carolyn and I spent the last week unpacking and repacking boxes in our basement that have been damaged by damp and mold since we came to Vancouver 6 years ago. It took a little longer than we thought because of all the memories we found ourselves reliving as we handled old photographs and letters. I found one picture of me and 3 close friends from my college days. All 4 of us were involved in a Christian leadership team, but it was melancholy for me to look at the photograph and realize that 2 of those much-loved friends, some 25 years later now, are not walking with Christ. The same is true of some friends with whom Carol and I graduated from Regent College 18 years ago. Good people who walked on, but somehow they didn't walk rooted. I don't want that to happen to you, graduates. So how will you stay rooted as a walking tree? Following closely on Paul's exhortation, here is my charge to you. Move on from Regent College in 3 directions: down into Christ, up into Christ, and forward into the truth that Christ Jesus is Lord. Down, this is your identity. Up, this is your call to maturity. And forward, this is your mission. First then, move on from Regent College today by moving down deeper into the truth that Christ Jesus is Lord. He is here. He has always been by your side. This is your identity. For Paul to remind the Colossians to walk rooted in the confession that Christ Jesus is Lord was a political statement in the Roman Empire. Caesar was Lord. Kaiser was kurios, the same word, Lord. Everything around the Colossians in architecture and literature and culture would have made the claim that Rome was the source of fruitfulness and abundance. But Paul says you can't put your roots down into that soil. Your whole life, he said, has to be fed elsewhere. It's hidden with Christ. Put your roots down into this soil. Why? Because Jesus is Lord of all. He has a unique authority. All things were created by him and for him. He holds all things together. He is the Archimedean point in the universe, holding together earth and heaven. God was pleased to have all his fullness dwell in him, and through him to reconcile to himself all things. The way that Paul pictures this authority is to say that Jesus is seated at the right hand of God. Jesus is seated as a sign of supreme authority. At Oxford, I had to attend a formal matriculation service to commence my degree, as well as a graduation ceremony at the end of my degree. I had to buy an academic gown, and I had to buy this hat to go to a service in the 17th century Sheldonian theater, but I never got to wear the darn hat. After spending some 15 or 20 quid on it, I never got to wear it. In the Sheldonian theater, the only one wearing a hat was the vice-chancellor of the university. It was a sign of authority. The rest of us just carried our hats. Now this hat is usually in our dress-up clothes basket at home for the kids to play with. Jesus, though, is seated at the right hand of God as a sign of his presiding in authority over all things, like the vice-chancellor at Oxford wearing his hat. And Paul wants to connect here 2 mysteries together: the mystery of who Christ is and the mystery of who we are, who you are. Paul does not use the word mystery in the way some students do at Regent College. When some students say that something is a mystery, they mean only that their brain hurts, even though they call it postmodernism. This wasn't the way David just used the term mystery. I think David used it in the sense of the, "'Tis only the splendor of light hideth thee." There's more to Christ than we can grasp. There's always more to explore and to discover, and that produces humility. But Paul says that the mystery of who Christ is and of his surpassing greatness is a mystery that has been unveiled. It's been revealed, disclosed, and it's been revealed for you. You can live here. You can put your roots down into this. So today is a kind of robing and disrobing ceremony for you. You are robed for graduation, but you are also being stripped of your identity as a student. And you may wonder a little bit about who you are, as we do in these life transitions. This is a good time to again put your roots down deep into the primary confession that Jesus Christ is Lord. Before all things, who am I? I am a person who confesses Jesus Christ is Lord.